room is for my protection.
Protection from what?
From you, Mark. Mark, we can be the good guys, or we can be the guys that save the world. We can't be both.
The battle with Doc Seismic, Mark's only choice of killing Armstrong Levi, Alan's plan to help Omni-Man, the new Viltrumite, and Nolan's regret of leaving his family. The beginning shows us all this scene from the past season, including Mark's complex relationship with Eve. The new season begins with Mark in a heated battle with a giant creature. The creature breaks off a mountain and uses it to crush Mark, but Mark's powers allow him to break through and beat the creature. The creature is an 8-year-old boy with a condition. They don't want the parents to worry. So Mark returns and asks Cecil what's next. Mark flies out from a volcano testing his endurance, and he undergoes so many tests and exercises testing his powers. He lifts the heaviest thing they could find, but Cecil won't let that stop his improvement. Back at the center, a report on Mark shows that his speed and endurance has increased massively, and his strength has even increased by 130%. Cecil says they can't stop progressing with Mark or the other heroes, since the last Viltrumite told him a stronger Viltrumite was coming. Rex walks in, making a comment about Mark's intense training. Just then, they find out the Declaration of Independence is getting stolen. Mark's first guess is Doc Seismic, but it can't be right since the Doc is still locked up. Cecil asks Mark if he wants to test out his new strength, and Rex jokes about being ignored. Mark asks Rex to follow him, and a secret snitch is giving away their location. At the National Archives, 2 times travelers are trying to get away with the Declaration of Independence. Mark shows up with Rex, and Rex said they picked the wrong day. The guys attack Rex and Mark, but mid-fight, Rex asks Mark about Eve. Rex asks Mark if he's been avoiding Eve, and Mark explains he's been busy with Cecil training. Rex suggests Mark should just ask her out, since they are both into each other. He takes care of the guy, but Mark holds back, so he won't hurt the other one. Just then, Rex is attacked by Multi-Paul. Paul is enraged, blaming Rex for his sister's death. Multi-Paul swarms around Rex, trying to beat him to death. Mark hits Fight Master away, so he can save Rex. But the brothers use that opportunity to get away with the Declaration. Mark tries to talk with Paul clones, but they try to stop him, forcing Mark to brutally beat his way, eliminating them to get to Rex. But Immortal and Kate show up at the last moment. This leaves Paul shocked because his sister isn't dead. Rex is even more surprised. He is angry she let him, and Ray thinks she was dead. Immortal tries defending her, but Rex gives the finger. He says Paul almost killed him for no reason. Paul still tries to act tough despite causing a huge mess. Mark hits and arrests him because Paul almost killed Rex and he allowed the brothers get away. Back at home, April is testing Mark's brother, Oliver, on some questions. She finishes with them, and Debbie comes back home. April tells her that Oliver is improving so fast. Oliver is playing outside, and Mark comes back home. April takes her leave, and Debbie hugs Mark. She tells him about Oliver, and says he's really looking up to Mark. Mark plays catch with Oliver, similar to Omni-Man, and tells him about his day. Oliver suggests if he was with Mark, he would have helped beat the bad guys. He asks Mark to promise to let him fight by him once he has his powers. Mark agrees, thinking it would take a long time. But Oliver flies up to catch the ball. Back at the base, Rex tells everyone about Kate, and they're all shocked to see that Kate is alive. They're even more surprised to see that she is engaged to Immortal. Rex goes to sit down, but Ray comes to meet. Rex is happy seeing that Ray has recovered fully. Meanwhile, Cecil gets a report on unusual geological activities that have been happening. He decides to brush it off as a giant coincidence, since Dr. Seismic is still locked up. He's about to leave, but Donald shows him a clip of Oliver. Debbie and Mark are talking about Oliver, and Debbie is concerned Oliver didn't tell them he had his powers. Mark tries to convince his mom Oliver just wanted to surprise him. He also tells her that he made Oliver promise not to use his powers. But they don't notice a sad Oliver eavesdropping on them. Mark is with his friends William and Rick, and they notice something is wrong with Mark. He tells him about the Eve he met in the other dimension, and how she always loved him. Rick suggests Mark should be honest with Eve, but he suddenly starts having heart pain because of what Sinclair did. They get into the car, and William suggests he shouldn't tell Eve about the other her. The car refuses to start, and Mark helps his friends out. The next day, Mark goes to meet with Eve. He hovers for a while before flying in. They catch up, talking about Eve's dad and Mark's mom. And Mark also tells Eve that Oliver can now fly. Eve is impressed and says it's going to be stressful for Debbie. She asks why Mark is really here, and Mark confesses, asking her out. Back at home, Debbie is getting Oliver ready to blend in, and they get a surprise visit from Cecil. Debbie defends herself, letting Cecil know she only knew about Oliver's powers yesterday. Cecil tries to let Debbie know they are part of a bigger game concerning Earth, but Debbie, who's just trying to do her job as a mother, says her family comes first. Doc Seismic is up to something in his prison, and suddenly, the shower stops for Rex. He goes to check what's wrong, but finds a massive crater and is abducted by creatures. The agents are panicking because of the activities, and are trying to reach out to any hero. They find out that all the heroes are being abducted and disappearing from their tracker. Cecil, still in a conversation with Debbie, learns that every hero has been abducted, except for Eve and Mark. Eve agrees to go out with Mark, since they're both heroes and are familiar with their territory. But Mark fumbles and tells Eve about the other Eve. He said the other Eve always loved him, but this leads to Eve thinking Mark only confessed out of pity. She gets upset and asks if Mark ever had feelings for her before. Cecil interrupts and tells the situation at hand. Oliver tries to sneak out, but Debbie catches him. Underground, Doc Seismic has all the heroes captured. Doc Seismic's only grudge is that the heroes are helping out the capitalist governments, and he wants them to pay, being responsible for their falling human race. He plans to end them all, but Eve and Mark make an entrance. They tell the Doc stop, but Seismic unleashes an attack that turns out to be a call. Many monsters and creatures start showing up, and Cecil is annoyed that Doc Seismic was able to pull something like this off. He asks for their other options if Eve and Mark are defeated. They have no one left. Both Eve and Mark are struggling, so Cecil decides to call in a drop pod. Debbie talks to Oliver about sneaking out, and Oliver apologizes, since he only wanted to help out the other heroes. Debbie makes Oliver understand he isn't ready yet, but she gives him hope, saying as long as there aren't any more secrets, then Mark can start training Oliver. The idea excites Oliver a lot, and he goes to hug his mom. Meanwhile, Eve and Mark are struggling with the creatures. They seem to be crazy strong, overpowering even Invincible. The battle is too intense, and Eve gets knocked out. Mark gets stabbed by the creature, and its poison makes him dizzy. Seismic takes advantage and knocks him out. When Mark regains consciousness, they are already trapped. He tries to wake Eve up to use her powers, before Doc Seismic crushes them. Darkwing goes to join the fight. He stops Doc Seismic, and some pods land in the scene. The robots come out and go to free the heroes. Doc Seismic calls on the creatures again, and the fight begins. The robots go to help Mark, but he crushed them in anger. The creatures are absolutely getting destroyed, so Doc Seismic plans to crush everyone along with himself. Mark wants to stop him, but Darkwing handles it first. Seeing that Doc Seismic is gone, the creatures return to normal and they leave. The guys cheer their win, and Darkwing returns with Doc Seismic. Mark attacks him, saying Darkwing was a murderer. He also complains about Sinclair's robot, and Mark is annoyed he trusted Cecil. Immortal tries to calm him down, and even Eve tries to stop him. He leaves anyways and asks Cecil if Sinclair is working for him. Cecil tries explaining to Mark that although they killed people, Darkwing and Sinclair have potentials, and they can be reformed instead of them being in jail. He said Sinclair new robots are made with donated corpses, and Darkwing won't kill again, because they went through severe psychological reprogramming. He tries to downplay his actions, saying that Mark killed Armstrong, but he isn't behind bars. He uses the excuse that he just wants to save the world, like Mark wanted to save his family. Mark doesn't want to leave until Sinclair and Darkwing are back in prison. Cecil goes into the White Room and tells Mark the White Room is his protection from Mark. In the end scene, Nolan and Alan are locked up by the Viltrumites. Nolan tells Alan to leave, since he is a lot stronger now, but Alan still insists on leaving with Nolan. Nolan warns him about the Viltrumites wanting to understand how Alan is stronger, and they try to laser Alan, but he survives the laser. This brings episode 1 to an end.